will be giving their opening statements. This is the subject of, is there a left-wing woke agenda going on? You have 6 minutes, sir. Go for it.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we got you.
Okay, great. So just to kind of launch this off, I'm going to start by saying that woke culture is gross. It's disgusting. As to the question if there is a woke agenda, the answer is most certainly yes. Hard to imagine the two libs here who are ardent supporters of Destiny, who was deplatformed by what Mr. Girl called transo culture for the high crime of, well, likely telling the truth, would even try to make an argument that there is no woke culture when we see it inside of the very platforms that they stream on. The truth has become a revolutionary act. Very few people tell it at all. Liberals, least of all. Neither opponent can say truthfully that progressives don't control essentially all major institutions, including the government right now. Very difficult to believe the progressives here can say with a straight face that such a culture does not exist as woke culture. Twitter, almost as soon as the announcement was made that there would be a change in hands, broke their fingers typing brand new code as to cover their tracks of obvious shadow bannings, showing us hundreds and thousands of accounts that instantly had tens to hundreds to thousands of followers overnight because these accounts were clearly being suppressed. This is part of this technocracy, woke technocracy, that has a control grid over almost all major media institutions. The agenda of woke is completely obvious. We can move into some of the more controversial LGBTQ advocacy groups, which are part of this woke culture. But for the purposes of TOS, I'll try to stay at least somewhat clear of those. And I don't even think that we need to necessarily get into them for me to make these broad points to you. We saw during the BLM riots the exact same type of woke culture. And there was massive corporations that were being promoted by the media who were giving tens of thousands of dollars to professional provocateurs and rioters in our streets in order to push what was an obvious communist agenda. Saying that there is no woke culture is absolutely insane. Of course there is. I doubt my opponents can make a case for how there isn't. And with that, I'll turn it over to my wife, Rachel. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. This is my first time on here debating with Andrew, so this is going to be fun. Stardust and I have had a good debate before, a couple good debates before, so glad to be back here talking with her. Building off of what Andrew said, in my book, which you can buy on Amazon, I have done a ton of research on feminist movements, but you might already know that the feminist movement was tied in throughout history with all kinds of other liberal social movements, such as abolition early on, and then later civil rights and gay rights, and now it's all intersectionalism, right? So the whole woke agenda that we're talking about is essentially just a movement to disintegrate the social order, the standing social order, which has existed fairly in the same form in the West for thousands of years. I mean, we've had a nuclear family, we've had a patriarchy and a hierarchical system, and the woke agenda is really about tearing that down, disintegrating that, dissolving all boundaries and making everything permissible. Any type of limits, any type of boundaries, other than please don't hurt me, bro, are basically, trying to cast out. It's essentially, it started with the Enlightenment, and now we're in the kind of hyper phase of it, where it's basically anything and everything goes, everything is acceptable. And the end goal of that is going to be some kind of globalist, technocratic order where it's very top-down control. There is no private property, no nuclear family, things of that nature. So when we see all these social movements that just in the last 10 years, things that would have been absolutely unthinkable 10 years ago are now suddenly not only totally acceptable, but are being pushed heavily. That's why you see Maybe 20 years ago, the younger generation, only about 1 to 3% would identify as some type of LGBTQ identity. Now we see in Gen Z, about 20% identify as some kind of LGBTQ. And it's because this is cool, acceptable. It's almost like you're weird if you're not gay or something like that now. So there's definitely an agenda, but it's much more than just Republican versus Democrat, liberal versus conservative, or right versus left. It's much, much deeper than that. And ultimately, it does have some spiritual underpinnings, as all political battles do. So there's certainly an agenda, and I think all you have to do is know a little bit of history to see that. And that's about it for me.
Okay. All right. So can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Gotcha.
All right. Okay. So wokeism is an adjective meaning alert to racial prejudice and discrimination. What wokeism is an awareness of racial and social justice issues and a dedication to strive for better. This has been an ongoing movement since the civil rights, and the term woke is just a continuation of that. Some think that a woke agenda is one in which people are canceled for not believing the right things, and companies are nefariously participating in pushing progressive agenda to change culture. However, this is not my stance. My stance is that wokeism is good for business, good for growing children, and not correlated with cancel culture. Wokeism saved iconic American brand Mattel as Barbie's sales bloomed during the pandemic following a revamp. Wokeism is a good thing, encourages diversity, acceptance of differences, and equality. Cancel culture, on the other hand, has been around for a long time and has been something that many different groups have participated in. Whether that's progressives, conservatives, or people in between, moral panics are often perpetuated by conservative fear and result in the cancellation of various people. Some examples of cancellation not perpetuated by wokeism are the Red Scare or McCarthyism, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics trying to forbid Billie Holiday from performing anti-lynching song Strange Fruit, Disco Demolition Night, Nina Simone getting banned from the radio and much of the South for the song Mississippi Goddamn, the panic around Dungeons and Dragons in the 1980s and 1990s, which is, you know, a very nerdy game that people suspected a bunch of nerds were, I guess, worshiping demons through this game, the Satanic Panic, and most recently Colin Kaepernick being canceled for kneeling during the anthem. With these examples, I find it hard to blame woke culture for cancel culture or accountability culture. In fact, I would largely blame moral panic and outrage for the ruination of many lives over the decades.
Okay. You're good, Stardust?
Yep. I'm good.
Okay, cool. So I don't think there is a woke agenda. I think this is just the continual pursuit of civil rights, like Stardust was saying, and equality. And it's being amplified nowadays by social media, things like TikTok, and people are seeing videos that outrage them of the most extreme things, so they feel like the whole world's falling apart. And we're at the point now where the right is no longer using culture war topics to distract from their terrible economic policies, but rather they're just using culture war for the sake of culture war to rile people up and get them out to vote so that they can hold on to power. They need their boogeymen, whether it's transgender people, undocumented immigrants, the education system, whatever it is. But I think people need to stop blaming the pursuit of equality for their problems. I mean, people trying to identify as something doesn't affect you in any way at all. My bigger concern is the economic fallout that is starting to come from some of these laws that are being passed to try to push back on this stuff. I mean, we don't have to look very far. We have the Parental Rights and Education Act in Florida, also known as the Don't Say Gay bill. And poor Disney, a private company, decided to speak out on behalf of its employees, which I thought conservatives are all for freedom of speech, but I guess not in this case. Interesting. And now the state of Florida wants to pass, or did pass, a law to dissolve Disney World's district where they set their own taxes, the Reedy Creek Improvement District, by June 2023. And what is this going to do? This is going to pass $1 billion debt onto the taxpayers. They're going to lose out on $100 million in taxes that Disney was able to levy on the local population. And property taxes are going to go up like 20%. So it's getting kind of serious now with this anti-wokeism nonsense, and I think the onus is on the people out there saying there's an agenda. It's up to you guys to lay it out, not for us. Show us who the players are, show us what the plan is, and show us what the goals are. You got to lay it out like a RICO case for us to buy it, buy what you're selling. So I look forward to this discussion. I'm excited to see what our friends on the other side have to say.
Thank you for that opening statement, IRI. At this time, we're going to open up the floor, but to let the audience know, there'll only be 50 minutes of cross-examination. After that, we'll have audience questions. During that time, submit your questions, and I will be copying them over, and then I'll bring them up later. The floor is open. Go for it, gentlemen.
Okay, so first and foremost, I can't kind of help but hysterically laugh at the contradiction of our opponents, the first of which did a bait and switch and says, yes, there's a woke culture. That's true. But what that really means is civil rights. It's not what it means. That's absurd on its face. And then your partner, who you obviously didn't coordinate with, says, no, there's absolutely no such thing as a woke culture at all. Nothing at all. There is no woke culture. It doesn't exist. The onus is on you to prove it.
Wait, there's wokeness. Wait a minute. There's wokeness. I didn't deny.
Let me finish. I'll give it back. Okay? The onus is on us. We don't need to prove it, right? Your teammate just gave us a definition of what you consider it to be, which is everything that's egalitarian based, right? That's what her definition of it was. So do you disagree with that? I'm really important. Do you disagree that Stardust's definition of egalitarianism is basically wokeness? Or maybe does Stardust want to backtrack on that and re-explain it?
I think that we didn't contradict each other at all, because we both have not said anything to affirm a woke agenda. Sure, we can identify what wokeism is, right? And we can definitely identify like wokeness within culture. But as far as an agenda, like a coordinated thing to like push progressive agenda, I've yet to see an example of that.
Well, wait, if everything that's egalitarianism that's being pushed by the government is woke agenda, how's that not coordinated? That's insane. I can't even believe you just said that. It doesn't even make any sense on its face, Stardust.
Okay, so what? Yeah, what wokeness is being pushed by the government?
Well, according to you, anything that is egalitarianism, you said we can define wokeness. We know it when we see it. And it's basically any form of an egalitarian movement. Those were all the examples that you cited for your definition of what wokeness is.
I said,
so to say that everything from the civil rights and this types of things are not coordinated is absolutely insane on its face. So maybe you should just backtrack a little bit and give us a different definition. That's wokeness.
So no, I'm not. So wokeism, again, what I said it was an adjective meaning alert to racial prejudice and discrimination. It's an awareness of those issues. It's an awareness of those issues. It's an ongoing idea, right?
It's not Stardust, you said it was like a continuation of civil rights, correct?
Well, yeah, the ideas around the civil rights, yes.
That totally wasn't coordinated, though, Stardust.
Not necessarily. No, there's not. It's not like an agenda. No.
There was no agenda for civil rights.
I don't think agenda in the way that you mean it. I guess.
What way do I mean it? In what way do I mean it that I'm not saying it correctly for you? Was there a civil rights agenda or was there not, Stardust?
There was not. I think people had to fight very hard for civil rights.
Would you say that the Civil War was part of a civil rights agenda, Stardust?
The civil rights was part of a Civil War agenda.
Yeah, the Civil War. Would you say that that was part of the civil rights movement? You know, that whole war for the freeing of slaves thing. Would you say that was agenda-based, maybe highly coordinated by government agencies, maybe 2 full government agencies, in fact, right?
I think that the Civil War was more about recognizing that slavery was wrong, right? And I think that...
Civil rights, you mean? Right.
The Civil War...
Well, look, we're talking about right now. Okay, so let's stick with modern day here. What we're arguing, we're not arguing what wokeness is. She was just saying, hey, look, wokeness is, this is the colloquial definition of it. But what we're talking about is there an agenda? That's what Rachel said. Rachel said there's an agenda that is being played out right now. So you guys tell us, who are the players? What's the plan? What's the end?
We got your definition already. We got your definition, which included all of the egalitarian governmental players who are involved in wokeism by your definition. So what are you talking about?
I think you're conflating movements with agendas.
Yeah, but you guys know that when I think I can clear this up, because you guys know that when Congress convenes, the Democrats have an agenda and the Republicans have an agenda. You could say conservatives have an agenda. An agenda just means like, this is our plan. This is something we want to do because we want this certain end result that we're going for. Now, I mean, the debate is about whether or not there's a woke agenda. And Stardust, you kind of said, well, there is, but it's not a bad thing. It's just a continuation of the fight for civil rights. And then ImReallyImportant said, no, there's no agenda. Prove it, bros. So Andy was just saying you guys were conflicted there.
No, I don't think that's conflicted. I think what's going on is Andrew is conflating me talking about a woke movement as like as me acknowledging there being an agenda. I don't think that there is an agenda. I think that the movement for civil rights, the movement for social equality and social justice has been something that's been going on for a long time. Does that mean that there's like an agenda for it? I don't think so. I think people had to fight very hard and had to fight with their own government to get those things.
Well, then that would be an agenda, Stardust.
Here, guys,
what are you talking about, Stardust?
I've got the dictionary definition of agenda. It says a list of items to be discussed at a formal meeting.
Okay, so there you go. What is our list of items that we're trying to accomplish with wokeness? Like, I've never seen anything like this.
Oh, I can tell you. I'll tell you all about it. If you've ever watched a single Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez rant, you've probably heard what the liberal agenda is. If you've ever listened to any of the feminist speeches, any of the civil rights speeches, any of the gay rights speeches, generally what Stardust is talking about would be considered an agenda. They say, we want this, and we're not going to rest until we get that, right? All these different groups. Okay. And what we're saying is the woke agenda is like it's the very ultra progressive side of things. And my argument was, it's been very clear. These people lay out exactly what they want to do. They have for the last 150 years. If you know a little bit of history, you know what every one of these movements was about and how they were all interconnected, which today we call intersectionality, right? They'll tell you exactly what they want. Black Lives Matter has an agenda. They will tell you what it is, and they have told you what it is. So I don't think it's that there's not one. I think it's that you guys think it's a good agenda and we think it's a bad one.
So what was that about intersectionality?
So all these different groups fighting for their civil rights, whichever group you want to pick, right? Now, when we talk about intersectionalism, the theory of like feminist intersectionalism, or, you know, it's like where, okay, so who's the most oppressed? If I'm a Black bisexual woman, well, I'm super oppressed because I have 3 groups of crossover of like being an oppressed individual. So this is all of these quote unquote rights movements coming together and saying, hey, we all have a lot in common. We have a lot of crossover. Let's work together, which is what they've always historically done. And I'm not saying the people in these movements on the ground didn't maybe have good intentions. Sure, they did. And I'm not going to say every single thing that they ever accomplished was bad, but I will say that they are unwittingly part of a much larger plan to kind of just redefine and reorganize the social order. That's obviously what wokeism is. Wokeism is, we don't want nuclear families with dads as the head of the household, mom staying home raising the kids. We don't want you know, small business and private property, and we don't want capitalism. We don't want these things. We're going to change it all. We want to reorganize it. That's what the Soviets did. That's what we've done here in different ways. It's always about just reorganizing the social order. That's what wokeness is really about.
Okay, so
let's disagree.
So no, I broadly define wokeism as being alert to racial prejudice, alert to discrimination. Right? That's pretty much what I define it as.
So changing the social order.
As far as an agenda, I think if you mean an agenda is when people do related things, and that's a really, really broad, very broad definition of an agenda, then you know what? Yeah, you can apply that to anything. There's an agenda for everything. People do related things all the time. As far as there being a coordinated effort between all of these different movements, I disagree. You've seen throughout history, throughout civil rights movements, where one group will get equality or get the rights that they want, and then they'll close the door for the people behind them. So no, I don't think that there's
coordinated to have an agenda.
That is your definition.
Who said anything about it?
That is your definition. That's your definition. If you think that an agenda is people doing related things, then a lot of people can do related things. But that is such a broad agenda. That is such a broad definition of agenda that you could apply that to anything.
Nobody said it had to be coordinated. Nobody said the word coordinated. You just made that shit up.
No, I didn't. Because Rachel brought up coordination.
Rachel brought up coordination because it is.
Not between woke groups specifically. So you can have BLM.
I mean, that's what the claim was from Rachel, was it not?
Who's not necessarily.
That was Rachel's claim. Rachel was saying that she claimed that.
You can have, like BLM, for instance, not necessarily coordinating with some other woke group in order to have an agenda that is still specific to woke.
Andy, I can easily prove her wrong. It's not even a point we have to argue, because if you look at the Black Lives Matter agenda, if you go to their website and see their platform, they are Marxists. They want to fight for Marxist social order. They agree with feminism. They agree with all these intersectional rights movements. They do agree, and they do overlap. That's why you have giant conventions like the first International Global Convention. You got the second International. You had the Humanist Manifesto, the Humanist Manifesto #2. Throughout the last 150 years, there have been globalist organizations that have worldwide conventions with people from all over different nations coming together to say, yes, we agree. Like, we may not agree on every single thing, but we all want Marxism. We all want to, destroy the patriarchy. We all want to end the bourgeois class. Like, yes, they do coordinate. Absolutely, they do. Well, I mean, it's just a matter of historical record that they do. To say that they don't is silly.
You brought up AOC. So this is one member of 435 in the House who has a huge social media presence. She does not represent the party. In fact, we didn't choose Bernie Sanders in the 2020 primary. We chose somebody much more moderate. So I would argue that this woke agenda you claim is taking over, including destroying the nuclear family, as if that's a mission in life. I think it's about expanding the idea of what a family is so more people feel welcome and feel accepted in society. Not everybody has a mom and a dad. Some people, can I finish? So can I finish? Can I finish my point? I'm sorry. And then you bring up the BLM.
I was going to say yes. All right, get your point out.
Yeah, no worries. And then you brought up the BLM website. Well, I could create a website tomorrow and say I'm one of the leaders of BLM and here's my mission in life. Does that define an entire movement of people spread across the United States, tens of millions of people? I went out to BLM protests. Those people don't represent me that put up some website with some tenets on it. I mean, come on, let's be realistic here. That's not fair. Are we going to let you guys be defined by some extreme characters on your side? Of course not. That's ridiculous.
I would think that you would let us be defined by the leaders who were on our side that we supported. I'm really important.
So, like, AOC, AOC's a leader?
Is like, oh, AOC. Yeah. She's only one. She's only one out of a large body. Who's
she's got powerful positions on committees, doesn't she?
But they have a joint agenda, right? She's part of a party platform. She's literally part of a party platform. What are you talking about, man?
She's a marginalized voice within the Democratic Party. She's one of a small handful of people. She's not even in leadership. How is she a leader in our party? She's an extreme member.
Powerful positions on committees? Isn't she on a couple different committees?
She's one of like
legislation?
She's one of like 40 members. I can't point to a single piece of legislation that she's even had a vote on the floor. No.
Well, I mean, what about all the giant NGOs that have woke agendas like the Rockefeller Foundation or the Ford Foundation? What about these massive, wealthy think tanks that direct all of the, kind of agendas for governments. It's not even AOC. I'm not so worried about AOC. There's much larger non-governmental organizations that have billions and billions of dollars that kind of direct these agendas. You don't think that that's a thing? Is that also just a crazy conspiracy theory that doesn't exist?
I do not think that there are NGOs trying to break up the nuclear family. I ask you, what's the purpose? Why would they want to destroy the nuclear family? Why would they want to see families not have a mom and a dad instead of just expanding the idea? Sure, I'd be curious to hear.
So there was a Bolshevik revolutionary named Alexandra Kollontai. She was the first diplomat ever to hold a position. She was the first woman ever to hold a main government position in history. She was part of Lenin's government, and she instituted she was the Commissar of Social Welfare. She was the first to legalize abortion, which set a precedent around the entire world. She has hundreds of writings, well-known essays, not well-known maybe by us in the modern day, unless you're me and you're a nerd and you read these things, but she absolutely laid out exactly why she wanted to dissolve the nuclear family, because she said there was no such thing as liberation for the proletariat nor for women unless we dissolved the patriarchal structure of the family and saw women as labor units whose loyalty was owed to the state. She felt that the state should be the dad. We need to get rid of dads, and we just need to. Yeah,
it's almost like that came true, and women are labor units.
So as far as the nuclear
she wasn't the only one. Many of the Bolshevik revolutionaries said this nuclear family stuff has to go. Do you want to know why? Because they said this is how the bourgeoisie passed down private property. They want patriarchy so that they have legitimate heirs, so that they can pass down generational wealth. We want to end generational wealth. We want to end private property. Therefore, we have to end the family and the institution of marriage. They wrote this. I mean, you can go read it. It's right there. They tell you what they're going to do.
100 years ago? 100 years ago, somebody wrote something, and we're supposed to assume that's being played out right now in 2022.
If you go to Marxist.org, this is the
hang on.
So who cares?
Slow down. No one can hear anybody right now. Just chill out.
Who cares if it was written 100 years ago or 200 years ago or 300 years ago? We have documents right now that we follow that were written hundreds of years. Like, what are you talking about, man?
Yeah, but
makes no sense on its face. What was asked specifically was, can you demonstrate a cog in this woke agenda to show what it is that they want? Rachel's like, here, let me demonstrate it. I'll give you the name. I'll tell you exactly what it was that she wanted. I'll tell you exactly why they wanted the deconstruction of the nuclear family. It was to make women cogs in the workforce. And what are they right now, IRI? Well, they're cogs in the workforce, aren't they?
Labor units. Let's go.
Okay, so first off, just because that was written doesn't mean that we follow that today. That was written by one person, right?
Oh, you don't think that the Marxist theory has any effect on how we do things today?
It might in some abstract way, but that doesn't mean that we're pushing for specifically the dissolution of the nuclear family. The push for racial justice had nothing to do with the push for dissolution of the nuclear family. In fact, the nuclear family was something that was a very privileged thing for a lot of people to even be able to have in their lives, right? Because a lot of the time with these nuclear families, if there would be other people, other workers who were also like women who had their own families who were forced to work, and because they were not middle class or upper class, right? For people who were poor, they've always had to work. It's not as if people didn't have to already go out into the workforce. In fact, children had to work for a very long time. So I don't think that that wokeism or the push for racial justice or the push for gender equality means that we're trying to destroy the nuclear family. If anything, I think that we're just trying to make more types of families accepted.
Okay, all right, and I'm pausing the clock really quick just so we can. I do actually want everybody to smash something right now, and it's that like button. We have 252 people watching. I'm sitting here for James right now in his seat, trying to help grow this channel, and we thank you so much for watching. Continue to debate.
Okay, so first and foremost, Stardust, you say, well, you know, the poor and the disenfranchised women, well, they always had to work. Well, okay, yeah, that's true. But we also had a budding middle class where a whole lot of women didn't have to work for an awful long time. And when we're talking about the nuclear family, we're not talking about it only has to be dad, mom, and kids. When people reference it, they mean cross-generational families, meaning if grandpa lives there, no big deal. Maybe there's a niece that lives there. Maybe there's a nephew. Okay, that's all fine. Nobody's making an argument against that. What we're saying specifically is that the deconstruction of having a family unit with a mommy and a daddy and the kids is something that is consistently under attack by woke progressive leftists. And it's foolish to say otherwise as we see it play out right in front of our eyes. You say, we just want to expand the family. Well, to look like what? To look like anything that we can make it look like that shows worse results and worse outcomes for everybody. Almost every single time.
Prominent gay couples now hiring surrogates to make babies for them, and everybody's applauding that? You guys don't think that's a massive disruption of the social order?
Not at all. Dave Rubin seems to be doing quite well with his him and his partner adopting a child. I think they'll raise wonderful kids. There's plenty of kids that grow up to be just great citizens that are raised by 2 moms, 2 dads, 3 dads. What's wrong with 2 friends raising a kid? What's wrong with 3 bosom buddies? Wait, what's wrong with 3 bosom buddies hanging out raising a kid? You tell me.
I'll ask you this. Is there a limit? What are the boundaries? What would be unacceptable to you? Is there anything?
Nothing.
If people say, I love my 7 partners.
He said nothing.
Oh, so everything.
Nothing.
So you just conceded what I said in the beginning, which is that the goal of the woke agenda is to dissolve all boundaries, all limits, and make everything acceptable.
No. I do want to differentiate.
Why would you say nothing?
Because yes, just let me say real quickly, we are not trying to eliminate your mommy daddy scenario. That's what you guys are implying. We are trying to expand what the idea of a family is. You want to have a mommy and daddy, we have no problem with that. I love it.
Yeah, I think you can look at anybody can look at statistics, and for sure, by far, having 2 parents in the house is better than having 1 parent in the house for outcomes for children, 100%. But when you talk about the nuclear family, you are not defining it correctly. The nuclear family is specifically a family group consisting of parents and their children living in a 1-home residence. This does not include the extended family. The extended family is something that is also a very traditional family unit, right? That we've seen throughout time. And wait a minute. I'm not finished. I'm not finished. Okay. You're talking about I'm not finished. Is there any
Andrew, no. Let her finish, Andrew. Let her finish.
Yes, I've been letting you guys finish, okay?
Yeah.
But first off, you guys are talking about preserving the nuclear family. Well, and then you're trying to shoehorn the extended family underneath that. That's not true. The nuclear family has always been about the parents and the children living in their house together. You do not include the extended family in that. And
why not?
The extended family because that's not the definition. The extended
we just
family.
Said and both.
Let me finish. I'm not finished. Okay. The extended family. The extended family is something that has been a traditional form of the family for a very long time, not just in the United States, but all over the world. And one thing that we want to do is to be accepting of the extended family, these joint families living together, big families living together, because guess what's even better than 2 parents in a household? 2 parents and 2 grandparents in a household, and all of those people being able to share responsibility and taking care of children. That is amazing. And then
so great. So how long are you going to go before I can respond to any your points? So first and foremost, Stardust, we're saying and both too, right? We're saying it's okay to have an extended family unit and a nuclear family unit. Isn't that great? So if grandpa needs to come live with you, that's just fine. That has nothing to do with the price of tea in fucking China. 1. 2, let's move into, let me ask you this question. If you didn't have your mom and she was replaced with a second dad, do you think you would have missed your mom? Do you think that you got things from your mom that you could never have gotten from your dad? Because I want you to kind of lie to me right now and say, no, I think if I had 2 same-sex parents, the outcome for me would have been exactly the same.
I was raised in a single-parent household, so having 2 parents in my household would have been better than a single-parent household, yeah.
Okay, so do you have no relationship with your dad at all?
None at all.
Okay. Well, you're still the exception to the rule. What about you, IRI? Would you say that if you had 2 of the same sex parents, the outcome would be exactly the same for you?
I don't see why not.
You don't see what you wouldn't miss your mom. You don't think there was lessons that were imparted from the feminine that could not have been imparted from just the masculine?
There are other female role models in everyone's lives that they can look to, whether it's teachers or counselors or
That's
the
not your
coach on
mom.
the team, whatever.
Who
What does
cares
it
if
matter?
the female role, they're not your
So you're
mom,
telling me,
though.
so you're telling me the person who tucks you into bed at night has to be a man or a woman to make a difference? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it has
I
to be
think
your
that-
mother
yeah.
or your father. You're essentially saying, again, you're agreeing with the people I was just talking about, that people are just interchangeable units. We're just widgets. There's no mothers and fathers. They're just random units. It's a very
They're not interchangeable. What is important is quality.
We said it doesn't
right?
matter. You could have Lurch
talking
down the
about
street tuck
quality.
you in at night, and it's fine.
Quality is regardless of gender, right? Quality parents are. It doesn't matter what gender that parent is if they are a quality parent.
Yes, you can have terrible parents. You two are competent people, but how many kids out there have terrible parents who are just dum-dums and had terrible experiences in life? They would much rather have two competent people of the same sex than two idiots raising them. I think,
Okay,
do you disagree?
Bring it back to the
you don't
topic of the
speak.
Debate. Andy, they just conceded the debate.
They did,
They're
but who
sitting
cares?
here
I still
telling
want to
us
dive into
that-
this because
I'm glad you two have
They're
decided.
sitting here telling us that there's no woke agenda. But
There is
then they're
no
saying
agenda. There's
that
no agenda
there's no
at all.
moms, there's no dads. It can just be anybody. You can accept everything.
What
Everything
we want
is
is quality
acceptable.
parents. We don't want just anybody being able to
Who
raise.
decides who's a quality parent?
Well, you seem to have it all figured out, so you tell us, what makes a quality parent, since it can only be a man and a woman? What's so special
It's not
about
a
mom and
debate
dad
about
to make them?
parenting.
Enough,
I'm
nature-
using this discussion to bring it back to the
nature.
fact that you are proving the point. We have won this debate because you have just conceded that, yes, we have a very woke agenda. We don't think there needs to be moms or dads or any sort of boundaries, any sort of limits, any sort of hierarchy, nothing, no structure. Everything's acceptable.
When did
As
we
long
say
as
no
it's not-
you
structure?
did.
As long as
IRI
everyone's
said that.
nice, it's
When
all
did we say
good,
no
right?
hierarchy?
IRI said no limits, no limits.
He said
on
no
any of it,
limit.
no
He
limits.
said anything is acceptable. It's
There
just
is still a hierarchy within a family with adults and children. There is still
Yes.
there is still structure
Well,
within
wait a
a family
second.
with adults and children.
That's not what the wokies on the left say. They are arguing now for child's rights. They want
Well,
children to
you're-
be able to consent to things. They want
You're
children
debating
to
a
be
straw
able-
man. We're in
No,
front of
it's
you.
not
You're
a straw
debating
man.
a phantom figure. We're right here in front of you. So who are these wokies? What woke? You talking about AOC
Well,
and her
okay,
Instagram
IRI,
account
not
for
one
135 again?
It's an agenda. That's the point. It's an
Yeah,
agenda.
so let me dive into this with you,
Yeah.
IRI. The wokies are you, the guy who said there's no limitations whatsoever on what you find acceptable. Meaning, if 30 gay men decide to adopt one child, right, and put them up in a frat house with them, in your opinion, that's just fine, right? Nothing wrong with that.
For me, Stardust may disagree, but I think it'd be pretty base to have 30 parents. Think about all the experience that those people bring, all the different skills, all the different occupations, all the
this
different
guy doesn't
networks
have
and
my
friends.
history
Mixing
book
What
in
a
my
gift!
life.
What a
You know,
gift!
you know we've done that, right? You know that's been tried. Have you ever heard of a kibbutz in Israel? They
You mean
tried
a
this
kibbutz?
a
Yes,
kibbutz,
I'm familiar
yeah.
with kibbutzes from
And
Israel. Yeah.
in the Soviet Union, they had these mass communal child raising experiments as well, and
Sure.
children starved and they died, and there was massive rampant abuse.
But those are
It's
professionals
fine.
raising the kids. That's the difference. Those are professionals raising the kids. Those are not
No, these
parents
were
taking on the
families.
kids as their own.
These were
No, my
families.
mother grew up on a kibbutz. I'm very
Holy
familiar with the
shit.
structure.
That was the greatest point you could have made is the one you just made. You're right. They weren't the parents raising the kids, right? You need the maternal instinct of a mother, and you need to have the instincts of the father as well. Now, you were about to say I was making a naturalistic fallacy earlier, but I was not. I was saying that nature already decided this in the fact that a man and a woman, that's what it takes to breed out a child. Do you think, because you believe in evolution, that over millions of years that you were designed to be able to breed singularly with a woman in order for you to just leave your offspring for other men, or to what is it that you think? How do you think that this came about exactly?
Well,
of
what
course,
happens when
the dynamic family of two parents is not only the best, but the best outcomes come from a working class family that has a father who's working and a mother that stays at home. There's no doubt that that's true.
I just want to make a quick point of clarification that I see parents and custodians as interchangeable. I don't see any value in the parents versus custodians, like a kid being adopted. So,
but there's no woke agenda here. He doesn't want to just completely dissolve
not an agenda
fabric and reorganize society.
What happens when one or both of the parents die? These are actual real life
outlier
scenarios.
cases.
They're not outlier.
Yeah,
they're not outliers.
They're
They're
not
not
outliers.
outliers. No, actually, back in the I believe in the early 1900s, back when the nuclear family was such a big thing, which it really wasn't that big of a thing, but there was a lot of mortality, and a lot of people lost either one or both parents by the age of 18.
How many is a lot, Stardust?
What do you mean?
Well, you said it's a lot. I'm claiming it's outliers. So since
it's
you made
not
the claim
an outlier.
It's a lot,
If majority of children in the early 1900s were losing at least one parent by the age of 13, that is
how many?
Majority of children.
No, that can't be true.
In the early 1900s?
No, that can't be true that the majority of children lost at least one parent. It can't be true.
This is all a giant distraction, though, from the point of the debate, which is there a woke agenda? And you guys are sitting here arguing for extremely radical social reorganization, thereby proving our point, and we win the debate.
What is the radical?
There's not a woke agenda in everything you've said.
What is the radicals? What is the radical? I guess I'm missing where the radical social reorganization is. Maybe you could explain where that is.
So we can raise kids with 30 frat guys. We can raise them with 2 gay guys. We can raise them with any combination of human beings, as long as there's not even a qualifier.
Well, and you would
just said it can be any
qualifier
situation.
The qualifier it needs to be that the parents are, and I might disagree with IRI and the 30 men in one house raising one child.
It's an extreme example.
It's an extreme example, but as a kid, I would be mixing up people's names. But I think that the qualifiers that we want people to be quality parents, right? Regardless of what their gender is, regardless of what their race is, regardless of all of these other factors, what is the most important thing is that parent wants to be a parent, that parent is a quality parent, that parent is giving their all to make sure that they can provide a good life for that child.
Right, but just randomly introducing all kinds of other people and situations and arrangements into the mix doesn't do that.
But that's not.
We don't want that. That would be wait a minute. We don't want that. We don't want random things introduced randomly into a kid's life. That would not be stable for a child, right? You want stability for a child.
Yeah, if 30 guys want to adopt a kid, let me just clarify my example. If 30 guys want to get together and adopt a kid and raise it in their frat house, then that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about just dropping a kid off at a frat house and somebody watches it once and
radical.
That's not what I'm saying.
Radical.
Of course it's radical. But let me engage with Andrew's point though. Can I engage with your point? Andrew, you said it back in the day we would mate with a woman and that would be the parents, right? That's what you said? You would couple up with a woman, right?
Yeah.
So I think, what about back in the day where every male in the tribe probably mated with the woman? Nobody knows whose baby it is. Probably 8 guys had sex with her before she was pregnant. What happens in that case? Who's the father?
Which tribe? Because I think you're lying, and there wasn't very many tribes that did that.
We're talking about civilized.
You don't think that those type of things happened back in the day?
No, I didn't say. Hang on. I didn't say that those things never happened. But again, you can point to every outlier example that you want. In mass civilizations, no. Those things generally didn't happen even amongst the pagans. All right? We have this thing still instilled in us called jealousy, IRI. You know what that is, right? We still have, do you think that just in 2,000 years, human beings have decided to stop being jealous, to stop being greedy, to stop all of our base emotions? Come on, man.
Well, yes. you said you believe in evolution. I'm going all the way back to when we were first starting to develop who we are as Homo sapiens, and I'm saying we probably all mated with each other, and somebody got pregnant. It was nobody had any clue whose child it was.
Yeah, I don't care about probablys, and it is all a distraction what you're talking about right now.
But you do care about probablys. You care about probablys.
First off, it was not an outlier that people would die, right? The parents of children would die, right? So that those children would need to be taken care of other family members.
You said most.
Well, in the early 1900s, yes. And even prior to that, I would say that, yes, a lot of children lost parents at an early age. And so they would be raised by by one parent, or they would be going to work at an early age. And unfortunately, that was what it was. People died much earlier.
Was
People
that optimal, Stardust?
It was, obviously was not. Obviously it was not. But wait a minute. Just because that I'm using that, it's not optimal, but that is an example of why having different parents of different genders shouldn't be a huge deal as long as those parents are quality parents. There are studies that show that children with same-sex parents report no different outcomes from children of different sex parents. And so, I mean, like,
there's a huge difference in outcome that you guys never indicate, which is hugely problematic. Which is that we're facing a worldwide and existential birth rate crisis. And how is it that you expect homosexuals to breed exactly? They're homosexuals. They don't breed, Stardust.
Where is the
and
worldwide?
And you're introducing this
via
promotion. Hang on. You're introducing this via promotion into society. You're promoting an LGBTQ agenda as fast as possible. And I'll give you examples. You've introduced gay marriage, and you try to get it passed as fast as you possibly could. There's rainbows all over the White House under Obama. Everywhere that you look, the radical LGBTQ agenda is being promoted over the heteronormative societal structure. And you say it's both and. I say that you want to do it at the expense of, because you only promote one of these things. You don't promote both of these things. Every time you promote something, like you said, when your definition of what wokeism is, every time you promote something, you're only promoting it for what you consider marginalized groups, not for normative or heteronormative families. You don't promote that. The
normative family was never the nuclear family. The normative family was never the nuclear family. That was a privilege. That was a privilege. That was afforded to very few. Yeah, sure.
But we're talking about two polyamorous, neurodivergent, transgender furries hiring people to be surrogates for their non-binary transgender.
Okay, this is a very America-centric view. This is a very America-centric view. You both know that birth rates are falling worldwide. Right. Yes. That should be that should be indicative, in fact, because in majority of the world, homosexuality is not something that's embraced. In the majority of the world, LGBTQ people are not embraced. That should be in the West. That should be indicative. That should be indicative of the fact that the birth rate falling has nothing to do with the LGBTQ people. It has more to do with people who are becoming more educated, people who are achieving more wealth, just tend to have less children.
Okay, so you don't think that 21% of the next generation being LGBTQ, that's going to do nothing to harm the birth rate just because people are getting more educated, right, Stardust? Is that really the argument that you're making right now?
21% can still adopt, right?
Okay, but somebody has to be the maker. Who's making?
Not everybody is gay, and that's not everybody's gay, and there's bisexual and trans people can have kids. But Andrew, let me ask you a question: would you rather have a mom and a dad who are drug addicts, heroin users raising a kid, than two guys who have science degrees?
It's a false dichotomy.
No, it's not. It's not. You're saying the value. No, hold on. You're saying the value of a mom and dad outweighs anything. So you're telling me you'd rather have two drug abusing people raising a kid.
Hang on. Let me answer.
Two solid gay parents? Really?
So let me answer this question for you. My answer would be no, but let me turn the question back on you with a simple bifurcation too. Okay? If the world was going to explode tomorrow, okay, would you stick your penis in a man's butt?
Okay, so you're saying that my example.
No. Answer my question. It's an important question.
Hold on. I just want to make sure.
Tomorrow.
I just want to ask for clarification. I want to make sure that I'm reading this right. You are equating my question of two drug addicted parents, mom and dad, raising a kid instead of two gay people to the world's going to explode. Am I going to stick my genitalia into something?
Yeah, I want to know.
This is the equal here?
What I'm asking is if these are your only options, because that's all you're presenting.
My only option. So you're telling me that's not happening in America right now?
Here's the
that's happening in America right now.
Hang on.
Well, hey, all right.
Hang on.
They've been interrupting you. Let Andrew get the point here.
Sure.
Andrew, finish.
here's the trick to a bifurcation, just so you know. I'm really important. You present it as you can only have this thing or this thing when there's actually hundreds of other options. Hundreds of other options. Okay? But you only present it as this or this. So you say, if it was a bunch of drug addicts, well, why didn't you present that the state could seize the child? Why didn't you present that there might be other family members who could take the child? Why didn't you present any of the hundreds of other realistic scenarios that would go into it? And that's why I say, okay, well, then I'll give you just as an absurd a bifurcation and ask you this. So answer that for me with a yes or no, like I answered yours. Would you stick your genitals in a man's butt in order to stop the world from exploding?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you would.
And I'm straight as a ruler. I'm straight as a ruler. I don't know if I could get it up. I might need some help, but I would do it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Do you see the point, though? He's saying you presented a false choice. You can't say
okay, that's fine.
Parents or
the
terrible
state raising the child would still be worse for the child than having two loving parents, even if they're same sex.
Guys,
and I would say that like an example, another example, like my life as a child significantly increased as soon as my father was not in the picture. And it would have probably significantly increased regardless if I had a second parent, right? Regardless of their gender, right? But regardless of that, as soon as my father was out of the picture, my life significantly increased. Like we're talking about quality over quantity. And if that quality is two same-sex parents, I would take that over any day over two terrible parents. I would take that any day over the state as a parent. I would take that any day because quality is what is needed for a child. Stability is what is needed for a child.
We get your point, okay?
Rachel, let me intervene for just 1 second. Hey, everyone, we only have 10 minutes left. Submit your questions. Remember to @ModernDayDebate. And remember, we're only at 90 likes right now, but there is 284 people watching. Hit that like button for me. Share this with your friends. Subscribe to the channel. Resume, guys. Go for it.
My point was going to be, you don't want me to drag out all my statistics about how, gays have far higher rates of domestic violence. Lesbian couples have the highest rate of domestic violence that there is. Gay men have high rates of drug addiction, depression, anxiety, much more so than straight couples. Kids who are, raised by a mother and a father experience far less child abuse than any other at-home situation. I presented these statistics tons of times in debates. It's not, nobody really argues that it's true that
I'd like to see.
We could do the same. We could do the same thing with races. Would you support the same thing with races?
No, the point here is to say that you have to have some kind of structure for society. You have to have some normativity. You cannot just dissolve all boundaries and say, what you guys are talking about is having a pure, like, ultra utilitarian society where we go, as long as everyone's nice, just do whatever you want, because that's not real life. That's not how it works. When you dissolve boundaries and you get rid of normativity and you get rid of structure and you get rid of like a moral normative situation, you end up with more and more deviancy, more depression, more degeneracy in general. Worse outcomes all around. So
I have a question.
To say that just dissolving all the boundaries is going to fix things is completely wrong and backwards. And they've tried this in certain parts of the world in certain times, and it has been disastrous every time and results in massive amounts of people dying.
I have a question. If the statistics showed that based on a certain race, a group of people were far more likely to have abuse in their households, would you prevent them? Would you prevent them from having children?
Absolutely not. You didn't listen to the thing I just said, which is there has to be a normative structure to society. You cannot just say anything goes. That doesn't fix things. The left seems to think that getting rid of rules fixes things. We'll just get rid of the laws and then there won't be any criminals, is essentially the thought process here.
Okay, give IRI some time to respond to that. Go for it, IRI.
I just want to say I'm willing to bet there's tons of other factors that contribute to bad households or whatever. And you have found a scenario where you're pointing to the structure of the family, but I'm sure there's tons of other variables that affect whether or not domestic abuse happens or drug use or whatever, or depression. I mean, really? You're going to blame the who's in charge of the kids for whether or not they're depressed as the entire source? I mean, come on, this is crazy. There's so many other things that are involved in the kid's life.
Man. Yeah, it's a pretty big source.
It's a big source. And
Listen,
we have statistics.
Well, give him some time to finish. Give him some time to finish. Let IRI finish. IRI,
I'm just
keep
saying,
going.
there could be tons of other external factors, and you're completely discounting them and simply saying that it's the parents that are fully to blame for these kids having more depression or whatnot. Who knows what the variables are here?
I do. Would you like to know? Because this is my area of study. I have an entire folder here. I can drop all the links, but I can just rattle some off the top of my head if you want some statistics proving that this is true.
I mean, what I would ask is again, like, what if somebody said to you, there needs to be rules, and let's say there were statistics out saying that mixed race marriages produced worse outcomes for children. Would you be against barring mixed race marriages if that meant that those children had worse outcomes?
So are you saying then, are you asking this question this way? If we had scientific proof that it was the race that caused it.
If you had scientific proof, not that the race caused it, but you're saying
okay,
that.
well, then the answer would be no.
Wait a minute. You were saying statistically, certain groups, LGBTQ groups, are more likely to have certain problems in their families.
Yeah, and we're saying it's because they're LGBTQ.
Outcomes.
You see how that works now?
Okay,
are you getting there, Stardust? Did the light bulb go off?
Because they're LGBTQ?
I bet you I could find statistics that show that a household that doesn't have a dog has more depression in it. I mean, what you can find any statistics to back up what you want to say for a household.
If it was based on okay, sure. You know what? If it was based on race, if you could find out that because
science, right?
If you found out that because a couple was mixed race, because of the mixed race couple, their child had worse outcomes, would you bar mixed race couples?
One more time, I'm just going to ask you the most important part, which is, are you saying that the outcome is based on the fact that they're mixed race and you have scientific evidence that the proof is their race? It's the scientific evidence is specifically saying that if you're born this race, no matter what, there's going to be worse outcomes for the kids.
If you're born this race and you get with a different race, no matter what, the outcome will be worse for those children. Yes,
okay,
that's what I'm saying.
But just so that we're clear, because I need this, I need to make sure before I answer this that we're as concise as we can be. So the science is saying that you being this race is the factor, not poverty, not external factors, not anything else. It's literally just the genetics of this race. The
nature of the relationship, right? You being this race and the partner being a different race is the reason.
And no, because then that would indicate other factors besides the race. That's why I'm asking you over and over and over again, is the scientific indicator that the genetics of the race are what's causing that? And if the answer is no, then we wouldn't be for it.
Is the scientific indicator that the genetics of somebody being gay is producing the worst outcome?
No, and we don't need that because we can still look at behaviors, right? And say that these behaviors that are attributed specifically to this particular group, and that it's not an immutable characteristic, it's a choice, they can change those things. Yes?
If you're saying that it's a choice for them that to enter this same-sex relationship and have a child, and because of that choice, they are producing worse outcomes for that child.
Yes.
Would you not say the same thing about an interracial couple, right? They are making the choice to participate in an interracial marriage, and they are producing worse outcomes for that child. How would you not
because it's not
the
due
same
to the,
restrictions
because
on
it's
them?
not the same because it's not due
How would
to
it not
race.
be the same?
Hang on, because it's not.
It's due to the choice that they're making.
No,
they don't have to choose to be in that relationship.
Hang on. It can't be by your formula. We know for sure, Stardust, logically, right, that your race is an immutable characteristic and that being an LGBTQ person is not, right?
Your race is an immutable characteristic, but
then it's not a choice, Stardust.
Entering a relationship with somebody else of a different race is still a choice.
Well, that's true, but whatever is the contributing factor causing those outcomes can't be the race, whereas it could be the sexuality.
It could be, yes, and this is the sexuality too. This is the sexuality. No, it's not beside the point. It's not beside the point because this is the sexuality too. You're making the choice to enter a relationship with somebody of a different race than you, and you're providing a worse outcome for your children as a result of that.
But it can't be due to the race because you said that
it's due to the sexuality.
You said it has to be external factors.
It's due to the sexuality. You said it's due to the sexuality of the gay people. It's the sexuality of the interracial couple too.
We're making the claim it's not due to the external factors. What are you talking about? You're conflating two different things, totally and completely.
Let me play your game a little bit here. So Rachel has statistics that show that kids in same-sex couples or whatever households have more depression, right, Rachel? That's what you were saying.
No, I have statistics showing that the mother, father, biological parents being married and having children is by far the healthiest situation for children on all metrics that they look at.
Okay, so let's just say then that one of the conclusions of that study was that kids that are brought up by same-sex couples suffer from more depression. Okay, I don't think that's an unfair conclusion to make based on what you're saying. What people like I will say is, well, maybe what if the kid goes to school and hears that his parents aren't acceptable? What if he never sees any examples of his? Hold on, let me just finish real quickly. What if that kid goes to school?
Statistics are
okay.
I'm telling like alcohol abuse, rates of incarceration, rates of child abuse. It's things of that nature. It's not like, oh my gosh, people are making fun of my two dads. Now I'm sad. No, it's like I'm being raised by two lesbian moms, and one of them's obviously not my mom. It's my mom's girlfriend. So mom kicked my dad out. Now my dad's gone. I don't have my dad in my life, and I've got mom and her girlfriend, and they have a much higher rate of abuse. Things like that. I'm saying on average, we're talking, this debate is supposed to be like a broad thing. We're not supposed to just focus on like this one little area. We're talking about a woke agenda. And I'm saying that we have tons of evidence that shows that to the extent that you try to dissolve and mess with a mother and a father being the biological parents of the children and raising them, and the general structure of society that is healthy, to the extent that you try to dissolve all those boundaries and get rid of all that structure and say anything goes, we could just do whatever, it's going to be better. Like your argument is that it's better, that humanity is better with no rules, no boundaries, no limits. We can just do whatever. Hey, have 5 furry non-binary girlfriends who all have autism and it's fine. It's like you could just pick anything.
What's wrong with
your
5
in the hat and pick whatever you want, and it'll all turn out better somehow.
All right, the time is up. I'm going to give you the last word on this, and then we're going to move into closing statements, okay?
My last word will be, what is wrong with 5 autistic furries raising kids?
I mean, nothing if you have a woke agenda, bro.
Okay, I think
all right, right there. Hey, we're gonna settle it right there. We're gonna move it into closing statements. Stardust, I will let you go first and start us off. Go for it. You have 6 minutes.
Okay, so the same arguments that were just used for LGBTQ relationships, raising children, were the same arguments used for interracial couples raising children as well decades ago. I think that the very fact that you can't answer the question, what would you do if the statistics showed that an interracial couple produced worse outcomes for children? And guess what? That is sexuality, because they are choosing to enter that interracial relationship. So what would you do if that produced worse outcomes? Would you bar them from being in a relationship? The fact that our opponents couldn't even answer that question shows me that either they're unwilling to acknowledge that it is analogous, because it is the same thing. You are choosing to be in that relationship. You are choosing to participate in that marriage, or they're I don't know, they're scared. I'm not sure. But I think that the woke agenda is not an agenda. Wokeism, again, is just like a broad idea, a movement, and people have been participating in this movement for a long time. They have been for racial equality, LGBTQ equality, gender equality for a long time, and wokeism is just like the word for it today. I would say that, again, cancel culture is not something that I would ever associate with wokeism, because cancel culture is something that's been also around for a very long time. And you can look at the Satanic Panic, where people tried to stop kids from playing Dungeons and Dragons because Dungeons and Dragons was such a dangerous game for people to play, when the Catholic Church was abusing children during the same time, and nobody batted an eye at that. I would say that I would point at, again, Billie Holiday performing anti-lynching songs, and the Federal Bureau of Narcotics was trying to stop her from doing that. Is that not a violation of freedom of speech? Is that not cancellation of some sort of way? Disco Demolition Night. Disco represented the Black, gay parts of society, and Disco Demolition Night was like a response to that, right? Destroying all of these albums, right? Book bannings, even today in America. So these are things that are cancellations or like ways that people try to stifle freedom of speech and freedom of media. And we don't associate it with woke culture, because it's never been about woke culture. It's been about controlling the opposition and trying to squash the opposition. And that being said, I don't support the censoring of anybody, left or right or center. And I think that to combat that, we should acknowledge that this is not something that's part of woke culture.
Awesome. And IRI, can you give us your closing statement?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it real short here, but I see what the problem is here. Rachel had identified that our goal is to break up the nuclear family. As we stated multiple times before we lost the debate, according to them 20 minutes ago, we have no intention of dissolving the nuclear family or the mom-dad structure. If that's what you want to do with your life, awesome. We just want to expand what a family means to give more kids a chance. That's it. We just want more kids to be raised by loving people, whether it's a mom and a dad, 2 dads, 5 furries with autism, I don't care. But I think that plenty of arrangements are capable of raising kids and sending them off to be wonderful citizens. And finally, as far as like depression or drug use or alcohol abuse or whatever vice you want to point to and associate with the mom and dad, I have a feeling there's a lot of other things in life that are much more responsible for that, including social media use and these cell phones, these computers in our pockets, and the way kids are talked about in schools now and what they have to deal with school. I think we should look much wider than just who's tucking them into bed at night and putting a plate of food on the table. I mean, give me a break. There's so many other ways that kids interact with the world, and you guys are absolutely obsessed with the 2 people that are in their house as if that will solve all the problems. I guarantee you, if you got rid of the ability for families to be anything but a mom and dad, you would still have a whole mess of problems. You probably have even worse problems out there in the world. But listen, this has been a lot of fun. I always appreciate talking to Andrew. And Rachel, it was a lot of fun to meet you and get to debate with you.
Thank you, sir. All right. And Rachel, you want to go with your closing statement?
Sure. So this whole debate was just ever so slightly frustrating for me, because I felt like the breadth of the topic was not addressed. I felt like we stayed in weird little pockets. When my whole opening statement was about, like I'm Really Important said, it's much wider than that. Yes, it is. It's much wider than just the nuclear family. That's why in the beginning I addressed things like the woke agenda itself is about dissolving all of that. I think people don't understand. That's why I tried to say it's not about Republicans and Democrats. It's not about conservatives and liberals. It's about a much broader agenda that is about dissolving all boundaries, erasing all boundaries, and that's why it has this spiritual underpinning. And you need like a broader historical depth, I think, to see and understand that. It's not about the current political climate. It's not even about the last 100 years. This is a much bigger, broader conversation, which I know can be tough for people if you don't like look at everything from a zoomed out macro level. But yes, the woke agenda is about dissolving all these structures. Anything that puts a limitation on reality, anything that keeps people grounded in reality or gives them limits to their behavior, anything that says, no, there are certain things that are bad for you. You know, there are certain things that are morally wrong. and we shouldn't do these things. The woke agenda is about dissolving all of that. It's about getting rid of that. It's about making everything permissible. It's about making everything okay to do. And it's ultimately a very anti-human agenda because it results in things like depopulation, the metaverse. Getting the coom pod and eat the bugs is like, people think that's a joke. But again, you can read what some of the most powerful people in the world write about, and they think this would be a great thing. This is what the woke agenda is. It's much bigger than U.S. politics, and it's really about dissolving good and bad, right and wrong, and morality, and all of the structures that kind of hold life together and create a stable environment for humans to live in. It's about dissolving that. So I wish we could have kind of like talked a little bit more about that, but that's kind of, that's not how these things go. But it was still a fun conversation with both of you guys, and I appreciate you.
Andrew, sir, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so first, let's start with Stardust. Stardust says over and over in her closing statement that her question did not get answered when we answered it 30 different times. But I'm going to answer it again the most coherent way it could possibly be answered, and I'll literally draw it on a graph if she wants me to. Okay? Your argument premise is flawed. What you're saying is there scientific evidence that the race in this scenario genetically is what is causing the outcomes? And the answer from you is no, it's not. And I say, okay. And then you say, what would you be against interracial couples based on their sexual orientation with each other due to their race because it would lead to worse outcomes? It's a contradiction, Stardust. The race couldn't lead to worse outcomes because you said right in your premise that the race wasn't what was leading to the bad outcomes. This is why it was flawed. It was non-analogous. I can literally graph it out for you. That's one. Okay, two, we're saying specifically to IRI's point that family expansion actually means disassociation. We made the claim over and over that the promotion of one drains the resources from the optimal results from the other. You're going to have to promote a certain standard for society, certain lifestyles for society based on the resources that society has. And what does IRI say? Sorry about that. What does IRI say? IRI says, well, whatever you want, man. Whatever you want, bro. You can, just live and let live. There's an endless amount of money. There's an endless supply of resources. We can promote every single value as a standard, even though then there would be no standard. If you had everything was permissible, there is no more standard. This was Rachel's point the entire debate, is you're trying to eliminate the societal standards. That is the woke agenda. And you're like, yes, we do, but we certainly didn't concede the debate, even though we totally conceded the debate by admitting that that was true. Okay? They clearly didn't coordinate with each other. They clearly didn't have any conversations beforehand because they disagreed with each other on what woke even meant. They disagreed with each other's points at multiple times during the debate. They didn't engage at all. They just made up absurdities, demanded that we answer to them, and then I showed them how well that works when you just make up absurd things, because you can just throw it right back in the opponent's face. So to end this, we proved that there is a woke agenda. We pushed in on what that meant. Our opponents could not even grasp together what they thought a woke agenda would even mean, or what woke by definition even was. They had two competing definitions. So, I mean, right from the outset, the entire debate was a mess because, to be honest with you, they just don't know what the hell they're talking about. And we did. And that's really, to just, kind of cut it off right there, how this debate went.
All right. Thank you, both sides, for presenting your arguments. We thank you so much for coming onto the channel once again. James, thank you for letting me step in and moderate. At this time, we're going to switch over into audience questions. Now, I was going through during the debate a lot of the questions, and they're mixed in some statements. So what I'll do is I'll throw out a question, let our debaters have it, and then I'm going to throw in a statement from the super chatters, because there was a lot of statements that had super chats next to it. So first one will go from Neon Noir, who donated $10. We appreciate your donation so much, saying based modern debate. We so much thank you for your donation and your support on this channel. The first question for $2 from David is, how old do you have to be to have a Stacey Abrams poster? for
Well, yeah,
everybody.
you have to be 18 years old, I believe, to donate to a campaign. So I would say you probably have to be at least 18 years old. That and put some respect on that woman's name. That's the next governor of Georgia, Stacey Abrams, to you, champ.
Blech. Gross.
Gosh.
And you don't even know how to spell Stacey's name. It's on my goddamn wall, you freaking genius.
Next one comes from Stephen Mullaney or Mulraney for $5. We appreciate you, sir. Pulling women out of the home isn't an attack on the nuclear family? Question to Stardust.
Yes, the nuclear family was something that was afforded to a small group of people who were very privileged to have that, and oftentimes they had the assistance of women out who were already working outside of the home, who would come and assist with them in the house, things like that. You can look back even further at more traditional families, and earlier than that, a lot of the time, the average working person was working, and that means male or female. So if you were maybe like upper class, or in some cases upper middle class, you could afford to do that and have the wife at home. But even then, oftentimes there was like a pretty bad issue where a lot of these wives stuck at home were seeing psychiatrists, and they were like being prescribed all sorts of things to deal with the stresses that they had being at home. So.
Next one. Oh, do you guys want to interact with that one at all, Rachel? Or
Well, I don't know if
Anthony?
we'll be able to get to the super chats if we don't keep them concise.
Yeah, I
Pedro.
could talk
we-
about that for a
yeah.
long time.
You guys
But
are right.
just buy
I'm
my
gonna keep.
book.
Gotcha. Yeah. Jack Wally for $10. The right wingers should try developing a moral system that's based something on other than pure faith.
Well,
You
that's
guys wanna
great.
respond?
We do have a moral system that's based on something other than pure faith, and it's called Christian ethics. Okay, even you, a person who doesn't believe at all in Christ, can still follow Christian ethics to a degree. Okay, so we do have a moral system. Sorry, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news.
Yeah.
For
We
some
use
reason, the
secular
hedonists and
argumentation
utilitarians
most of
all
the time.
think that if you're not a hedonist, that means you have no moral system. I have no idea why, but you should look into deontological ethics, because we do have a moral system. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah, Andrew and I both, although we are Christians, unless we're explicitly debating like theology, we tend to use secular argumentation. We'll use things like logic, reason, statistics, things like that to make our point. We don't just we don't make faith-based arguments. So just the fact that we are Christians does not mean that we just believe in some metaphysical thing we can't ground and just go from there. That's the opposite of what we do. So you should watch some of our other debates if you want to see how we do that.
All right. Next one coming from Mark for $10. Everyone stop talking over each other. Have a level of decorum. You have to show each other a little bit of respect for you to get your point across. Otherwise, don't agree to the debate. Disagree and move. Disagree to the debate. Also, Stardust, come better prepared. Stardust, do you want to respond to that? Obviously, that's a shot at you.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I have two Google Docs outlined, but I'll come better prepared next time.
I
Three
feel like
Google Docs.
Stardust came pretty prepared, actually. I'm not like on her team or anything, but I felt like she was pretty prepared. And stop, being a Karen about stuff, Mark. But thanks for your super chat, and thanks for watching.
Yes, thank you, Mark, for the super chat, even if you were wrong. And I appreciate that, Rachel.
Gotcha. Next one comes from Lewis to Stardust and IRI. All other things being equal, does homo parenting or hetero parenting lead to better life outcomes of the child?
From the studies that I've seen, it says all other things being equal, same-sex couples and opposite-sex couples have the same outcomes for children. But that's from what I've seen.
I think it comes down to having love in your life and people that care about you and people that can share values and their experiences and put you on the right path. And I don't care if it's, again, 5 autistic furries doing that or a man and a woman.
Find the right path when you got 30 frat dads.
I think that's based. That's a lot of life experience. I mean, imagine 30 people were dedicated to raising 2 kids. That'd be incredible. What are you talking about?
No, it wouldn't. They wouldn't agree.
Of course they would if they all signed up for it.
They would necessarily contradict each other. Do you know how hard it is to have 2 parents on the same page, let alone 30 frat dads or 5 furries?
I participated in raids in World of Warcraft, and we all got on the same page with more people than that, okay? And we slayed those beasts, and we got that magic armor.
Yeah, with a whole bunch of discombobulation and disagreement, and one asshole named Leroy Jenkins pulling a mob and killing off everybody. So shut up,
Leroy Jenkins doesn't look. Leroy Jenkins can't be part of this.
Leroy Jenkins, your argument.
Leroy Jenkins has his parental rights revoked. Sorry.
Listen, did you guys not hear Mark 5 minutes ago? Jesus, have some decorum.
All right, next one coming from Brandon Hansen for $5. Thank you, sir. All left/woke people follow the same line in regards to the woke agenda. It's not happening, but if it's actually a good thing. But if it is, it's actually a good thing. Any responses to that? Obviously, that's to the left side of the panel.
Not really. Like, I don't really.
I hear you. That was more of a statement.
Yeah.
And then the next one coming
cool.
from,
here's my response. Cool story, bro.
True.
Next one coming from JD. Do you agree that egalitarianism will abolish the parent-child distinction by revealing that humans are being discriminated on the basis of their age and development? That's obviously to the left side of the panel.
I think that the distinction, like, not all hierarchies need to be, like, abolished. I think this distinction is a needed one, and children are, like, unexperienced and need guidance in the world, and so I don't think the parent-child distinction will be abolished. And if it is, that would be ridiculous and really dumb. So
that is a weird thing to even think about. Like, what, you want a baby to, like, be on equal terms with a grown person? It makes no sense to me. Unless I'm missing something.
Against babies? Are you saying babies can't be good parents?
They don't have look.
So
in
I
a
will say that.
meritocracy,
Wait, there are limits?
In a meritocracy, look, in a meritocracy, that baby hasn't earned its right. Okay.
Gotcha. Next one.
I would be down for that. I thought he'd be like, "Who are you to tell a baby they can't adopt a baby?"
Next one coming from Steve Mulraney for $5. Relatedness has nothing to do with the biology of cooperation? ?
Of course it does. It's absurd on its face.
Who has a greater stake in the welfare of a child than the people that, I've carried 5 children for 9 months each and birthed them. You have quite the stake in ensuring that they survive and do well, and, bonding hormones and all that.
I think some people, adoptive parents, I don't want to ever diminish the good that adoptive parents can put in a child's life. I think it's very, very important that we encourage people to adopt, regardless of biological relatedness. You can have a bond with that child, and you can raise that child, and you can have a very meaningful relationship with that child.
I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying that the experiments that were done in communal raising of children over the last century proved it did not work. And even the people who came up with these ideas and implemented them, they had to stop the experiments. Like in the Soviet Union, they changed their laws on how they reorganized the family within 7 years of doing it because it was such a disaster. And same thing in Israel. The people who were raised in the kibbutz, however you say that, I'm not with my Midwestern accent, they all say that it was a very traumatic experience being raised that way, that it didn't work, it was bad, the parents said it was bad. It's never been done where we do this, like, anybody can just raise a baby, and as long as they're nice to it, it works out great. Like, it just doesn't bear out in reality. I'm not saying adoption can't work, but that again is like parents adopting a baby, bonding with it early on, raising it as their own child. It's not just communal raising or whoever raising type of a situation.
Gotcha. Next question comes from Brandon Hansen for $10. Thank you, sir. IRI/Stardust. The hardest thing a child can do is forgive their parents. It's hard to raise a child and make everything work. If you forgive them, you will have a much better relationship with them. True or false? It cut off the last part of that question.
Well, I think that holding a grudge, whether it's between a child and a parent or an old friend, is a poison that only affects you. So if you can move on with your life and forgive someone for doing something to you, then I think it's worth it for your own sake. But I'm not going to tell anybody what to do with their relationship with their parents.
I think you can forgive and still choose to move on with your life. So, and I think that's a very healthy thing to do.
True.
All right, next question comes from L. Deron. Stardust, can you hold a rally saying straight traditional family pride without getting demonized by the system/public eye today?
I actually do think you could. I think you could. If you, maybe not straight, but putting it as traditional family, yes, I think you could. I think that we already glorify the traditional family in a lot of ways in media, and in the past decades. A lot of people will say that companies today are playing into the woke agenda or whatever, or into like woke culture or whatever. I would say in the past decades, a lot of companies were playing into the whole glorification of the traditional family, and they would center a lot of their ads around that. So,
got it. And then Joe Schwans for $2 for all panelists. What is your favorite video game and why?
Oh no, I'm gonna get roasted so bad because I don't play video games. I play one video game, and I play it with my 13-year-old daughter, and it's Mario Party.
that's a good game, though. That's a very good game.
It is a good game, but it's not like, you know, gamers are going to hear that and be like, woo!
I mean,
okay, now
I used
you
to
guys
be
can be
addicted
cool
to games.
gamers.
I think that was one of the epic games back in the day. That's what started it off, right? IRI?
Wait, which game?
Mario Kart?
Mario Party.
I mean, I played like GoldenEye back in the day, but I don't play any games at all. I play real life, more fun.
Gotcha. Okay, so you answered the question. What is your game of choice?
Me?
Yes.
I live my life. I don't need to be a character in a video game, getting levels up and stuff. I have no joy in video games at all. I don't play any.
Oh, nice. Me neither. I cut it off later. Grown man over here. How about you, Andrew? Do you still play video games, or have you thrown every console out?
I do. I play them all the time. So I guess my favorite series would be the Total War series, but probably the funnest one to play right now that I've found is Project Zomboid.
Cool. All right, and we're fresh out of questions there, and we still have 18 minutes on the clock. So I actually noticed everybody thought we got drowned into like the child area of the conversation. If we can use this last 18 minutes, what would you say is the area where you wanted to talk more about?
I don't want to take up the whole thing, so you guys go.
I don't know. Children seem to be a big part of like wokeism or whatever, people attacking it. So it seems like that was kind of a natural thing. Maybe getting outside the house. Maybe could we talk about businesses maybe a little more, and like this whole idea of businesses being woke? Maybe you guys want to play with that?
Yeah. I'm pretty anti-corporate for the most part. Like, I'm not, surprisingly, you guys are probably used to debating a lot of like more neocon types. And I think capitalism has plenty of flaws. I'm not like over here doing a Sean Hannity routine where I love my corporations and I want them to dominate everything and all that. I think socialism, Marxism, communism is all terrible, but I think that capitalism lends itself to usury and corporatocracy and globalism. So I think that the corporations being woke is kind of proof of that. And I think that they are woke. And I think there are many corporations, the more woke they are, that aren't even profitable. Like they don't even exist necessarily for profit. It's at a certain point, it's about more than money. It's more about like the power and the hegemony and the ideology. So I think that they're like the big tech companies might be a good example of that.
Well, I mean, look at Elon Musk basically purchasing Twitter. They did it for the money because they got a 30% profit on their stock. I don't know if they were so into shutting down free speech, they just sold their company to a guy who says he wants to expand free speech and reel it back in. So I don't understand like what he thinks the disconnect there.
Well, that's nice that that's what he says, but you know, he's been taking a lot of government money for an awful long time, and he would be somebody that I would consider to be a global, kind of in a pact with a global hegemonic billionaire class. And I don't think that they have our best interests at heart, even if he is buying up Twitter and says it's for the purposes of expanding free speech. Yeah. While it may be true that we did see some significant changes quickly, it looked to me like most of those changes were not to expand free speech, but to cover the ass of people who have been lying to us for several years about shadow bans and things like this. But I don't expect some great reawakening on Twitter because some billionaire bought it up.
No, I've been trying to warn my right-wing friends that this is not the victory that they think it is. Elon Musk is a technocrat. He's an esotericist. His baby mama is an absolute high-level occultist. They're raising their child it has like weird letters and numbers for names, and it's non-gendered. And he has a futuristic technocratic vision, and I think that purchasing Twitter is part of that vision. I think he's going to use it to either gather data, to influence, to further other projects like Neuralink. That tends to be what he does. He'll take a project, and it doesn't even have to make a lot of money. He'll get a bunch of other support to keep it afloat, and then he'll use that to further a different project altogether, which is a pretty common thing that you see like the globalists and stuff like that do. So no, I don't think it's the victory that a lot of people on the right think it is. I know that they're like desperate for like somebody prominent to be on their side and like let them say naughty words on the internet and things like that. But I don't think that it's the win that they think it is, unfortunately. I wish it was. Maybe I'm wrong. Hope I'm wrong.
Ever the optimist, the Wilsons. Ever the optimist. Hey, well, Brandon Hansen gave you a good compliment here. Andrew and Rachel are some of the most eloquent and rational people I've had the pleasure of listening to on this channel. Keep up the good work. For $5,
Brandon Hansen.
Thank you so much, sir. That's very nice. We appreciate that.
I'd like to think Brandon meant to include Stardust and I, perhaps ran out of characters on the end there or something like that. Maybe a character limit.
Definitely.
So.
Well, if I had to give you a compliment, I know I'm not going to put any money behind it right now, but I do respect anybody who walks into the arena with their face and actually makes an argument and stands behind what they believe. So I do commend you both for that. And right now, OG Snoop had a question that came in that we missed it before. Sorry, sir. We'll field that now. Is it okay for a family to adopt if one parental unit is trans, Unit 2 is a dog, Unit 3 is a Frostfire fox? What's a Frostfire fox? What?
Who cares?
Okay. Firefox browser?
Unit 4,
browser.
Unit 4, a baby. Unit 5, Destiny. And lastly, a potato. OG, why did you make me fill this question?
I think if it's Destiny, the content creator, I think Destiny is a fine father. He's wealthy. I think he'd do a great job. As far as having a trans parent to join him on that journey, I think I'm sure that they'd make a wonderful parent, as many trans people do. Having a dog and whatever, a Frostfire fox and a baby part of it too sounds great. Sounds like a fun family. That's all I can say.
There's my dog.
So cute.
James, if you're watching this, James Coons, if you're watching this, I was reading all these questions. I was making sure they were good ones. OG Snoops is a friend to the Crucible, so when he made me feel that, I don't know what was going on. Please do not fire me.
He was trolling.
I do have a question. I do have a question. If you saw corporations kind of like weaponizing traditional family values as a like marketing avenue, would you find problems with that as well?
Well, no. So you're missing the point again, right? The point isn't Rachel and Andy hate corporations. The point is to say that these types of industries need to have significant restraint put on them so that they don't run rampant as corporate oligarchical overlords who control our lives and can massively invest in whatever programs they choose to in order to socially engineer society to their own benefit and gains. That's what we're saying. So if you're saying, oh, this corporation down the road wants to promote a dad on a lawnmower to sell lawnmowers, right? And he has a beer in his hand and he has the wife behind him and kids. Do we have a problem with that? No, we don't have a problem with that. That's just fine. It's great. It's wonderful. We're just talking about having some restraint on people who receive billions in tax breaks or millions in tax breaks from the federal government, along with huge amounts of subsidies, are able to form their own lobbying firms, almost their own private military forces, and having places like Walmart be dealt with like their own nation by China in places like this. That's what we're talking about by restraint.
Understood. This one comes from Dan Zammit, and this is to the whole panel, it sounds like. Why did evolution produce masculine and feminine characteristics in the normative relationships that can produce offspring?
Who's that directed to?
Sounds like everybody, because there was a moment in the debate where I remember a lot of, genetic.
I don't know.
Yeah,
why did evolution? Why do men have nipples? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like,
why is the G spot for the man in the butt?
Yeah, like why? Like,
I don't think it is, and I don't believe in evolution. So that's my 2 cents.
Why do so many men like their butts? That spot in their. I don't know. Like I have. That's where the poop comes out, man. I'm not into that.
What kind of boys are you hanging out with, Stardust?
I'm not hanging out with any boys. I don't hang out with boys. I don't hang out with anybody.
Oh, that's right.
How do you know where their G spot is, Stardust?
Yeah.
Let's
move forward.
Stardust, what's your name for the men that you want to get rid of?
Well, okay, so they call us femoids, right? That's like that's the joking thing. Yes, so I say penoids. Yeah, so I think
the penoids.
Yeah.
Log off, penoids.
Yeah.